Okay, so we're getting toward the end of this thing and it's starting to look kind of nice, right? We got your color scheme in place. I spent a while kind of messing around with switching some of my colors around from my color scheme that we have in our assets down here under the colors section. Kind of switching things out, trying some things. And there's still a thing or two I'll show you with colors at the end of this one if there's a chance, but this one's mainly about fonts. So actually, just to show you what I've got so far, here's my home page, and then I've got my menu doing this kind of thing, menu bar with the reverse video colors. And when I click, there's the active color as the page loads. So there's still some issues with this thing, but most of them are with the fonts. So after we do this, it'll really start to look a lot more polished. So I'm going to change the font for my header that's in the my heading that's in the header div up here. And actually, I've decided to do something else too. If I make this one great big font like I want, because we really need some contrast, we need some size contrast. We've got good color contrast, but I want some size contrast for this type. So I'm going to make invasive species kind of the main focus of this heading, and then awareness and action kind of be the subheading, sort of, or almost like the tagline. So instead of having this whole thing be in H1, what I'm doing is I hit enter after the species, and then for awareness and action, I'm maybe going to make that into an H2 instead. And then I'm clicking inside the H1, so I'm on that H1 tag that's in the header, and I'm going to make a style just for that H1 that won't apply to any others. So to do that, now that I've got that selected, that H1 in the header, I go to the New Style button, New CSS Rule, and it's making a rule for H1 that's inside header, that's inside wrap. And I don't really need the wrap part on there because everything's in the wrap. And hit OK. And the main thing I want to do with this is make it a lot bigger. So even if I do extra large or extra extra large, for some reason that's not very large. So what I'm going to do is actually type in a point size, or a pixel size, 100 px, and then it gets nice and big. And this is kind of more along the lines of what I wanted for the main heading. Should be kind of attention getting up at the top. That's the name of the whole site. And then on all of your text in here, you're going to choose different font families, and pretty much just keep it to 2. What you're not allowed to do on this is leave any of it at Times New Roman, which is the default that it's at right now. Times New Roman was not really meant for the web, and there are other fonts that look a lot better than Times New Roman. But you don't want too many fonts because that can just make things look kind of disjointed. So when you pull down this font family list, this will show you the core web fonts, and there are some that are serif, some that are sans serif. Serif fonts have the little hooks on the letters like this one does now, like on the S, and sans serif do not, so the sans serif ones tend to look a little more modern. For serif fonts, we've got Georgia, so here's what Georgia looks like, and Times New Roman, and also Courier New, which is sort of like typewriter text. And then the rest of these, Arial, Tahoma Trebuchet, Arial, Verdana, those are all sans serif fonts. So usually what I end up doing is choosing one serif font and one sans serif to kind of have some contrast there also. So I'm going to go with Georgia for that one, and then maybe on the awareness and action part underneath it, which is my H2 that's in the header. So I'm clicking on that and I'm making a new CSS rule just for H2 in the header. And maybe I'll make that my sans serif font, which Arial used to be the default font for sans serif in a lot of programs. It's not the best for a computer screen again. Verdana is a lot easier to read. Okay, and I think I'm also going to make this one a different color, so I'm going to do that and go down to my colors, see what this one looks like. Not readable, so try a different one. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to stay with that color, but that's the idea. I'm also going to center these just because they're in the heading. You shouldn't really center most of the stuff that's in your main content area, but headings it's okay to have centered, and I think I'm going to see what that looks like. So that's actually under block category, and then text align center. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my H1 that I made in the header. So I'm just going to double click on that style now that I've already got it. Go to block, text align, center, hit OK, click off it. Okay, so that's getting better. I need, I think, a little more space because of that P that sticks way down here. So on my H1, I'm going to add just a little bit of a bottom margin. So box, and then bottom margin, not sure how much, maybe 8 pixels. Try that. Yeah. Okay, just to give awareness in action its own little space there. Okay, so that's that H1. Next I would go on to main, and these headings that are inside main. Here's H1 for main. Just checking to see if I already had one. Okay, I don't, so new CSS rule just applies to H1 and main. Take out wrap again. And so I think I'm going to stay with maybe Georgia for my headings, or I might just go with all Verdana in this main section. I'm not sure. So actually I'll try that, Verdana. And I can set my color for my headings. So I think maybe on my biggest one I want to keep it the same color that it is right now. And then I'm going to keep the font size the way it is. There's what it looks like as Verdana. And then the other thing I want to do, we zeroed out all the margins on these. So I'm going to put back in maybe a little bit of a top margin, 6 pixels, and then some bottom margin. See what this looks like. Just to space it out a little bit. And then my H2s are kind of close to what's above them. I want a little more space in there between sections. So I'm going to make a new CSS rule. Whoops. Click on my H2. Got H2 selected that's inside main. Then new CSS rule for H2s in main. And I'm also going to make these Verdana. And I'm going to try a different color on these. So I'll go with that for now. And then under box, I don't want to make the bottom margin any bigger, but I think I do want a top margin. I'm going to try 20. Okay, that's not very much. Okay, that spaced things out a little more. So I'm going to see what I've got so far. So it already looks a lot better. I would probably do a little more, give this awareness in action, a bottom margin on there. But you can see what the top margin on my H2s did. It kind of split the sections, which is good. Gave them each one a little more space. Okay. Next thing I want to look at is my paragraphs in the main. So I'm clicking inside one of my paragraphs and selecting it there, and then I'm making a new style. Just for main paragraphs, I think I do have one of those. Nope, wrong, sorry, I was thinking of footer. So main paragraphs, main P. And so I'm setting 2 things on this. My for Donna, and I'm going with the color that I already have set for it, which was the a very dark blue color. Okay, and then the other thing typically that is done on paragraphs of text is increasing the line height. And that's right here on the first part too. And usually you put that on about 120% or 115%. And here's the effect that it has when I hit apply. It just makes the text a lot easier to read. And most of the time you don't even notice when there's extra line height on paragraphs, but it really does make the text easier to read. So I hit OK on that. My links on this page are kind of long, and I could shorten them up. I don't really need to list the whole URL there, but those we already have styles for. Those are main A, link, visited, hover, active. Okay, and so I don't have to change it 4 times. I'm going to do that just in main A. And then what I did, delete this, okay, double click main A. Sometimes you might want links a different font. You can do that if you want to. But I'm going to change the font size to small and see what that does. Okay, that's probably a little too small. Maybe medium. Okay. Another thing I think I might do for these links is make them into a list. So I'm selecting them, and then I'm going to the unordered list button here, which is the bullets. Okay, and that also changed the font. But then I could go and make a new style just for this, change the font. I could space them out a little more by doing Shift Return at the end of each line, like if I wanted to. Okay, or I might just leave them not being bullets. Okay. Let's see, sidebar. So sidebar, my links are in a certain font already. Here I've got sidebar P already in there. If you don't have it, just click inside like this paragraph up here that's in the sidebar, make the new style, new CSS rule. And this is still Times New Roman. So I'm going to see what it looks like if I have my sidebar text be that Georgia, like my main heading was. So I'm going to, sorry, Georgia. Okay, I think I'm going to like that okay. And then I might change the color also. See if this shows up. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. And then this name isn't all fitting in here. And this is just kind of the contact information, which I decided should be over there. So I'm actually going to make a class, which is a custom CSS rule. And custom CSS rules classes start with a dot, and I'm just going to call it contact, dot contact. And really the only thing I'm doing with this is making this smaller. And so maybe I can just do extra small. Okay, I hit apply because I wasn't thinking, but classes don't automatically apply to anything. I have to select this text right here and then go down to the class and choose contact. Okay, now that's pretty small. I probably wouldn't actually keep it that small. So I would play with that later. Let's see, the footer we need to change. I've already got a footer P class. If you don't, just make one. The footer is kind of the fine print at the bottom, so again, that's I'm going to go with Georgia, maybe medium. That color might be okay. Okay. Thinking that's pretty close to being